Hi there, good evening. I'm Chris Breen and I'm live with brother Sean, you're from Britball with the Breens. And tonight we're joined by special guest Jeff Reinebold, who's come on to join us for this evening. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great, fellas. I'm doing great. How's everything up in Scotland?
It's cold and wet and miserable as per usual, Jeff. Thanks for coming on and joining us. We are obviously going to look forward to the Super Bowl this weekend. But before that, we thought we'd just take a bit of an opportunity to talk about a shot with you, talk about sort of your involvement with football, a bit of NFL Europe, a bit about Sky, and then we'll get on to the big show this weekend.
All right.
So I think we just... Sorry, somebody's already asked me if that was the fire alarm going off. Just to start, where did your football journey begin? How did you get involved with football?
Well, like most kids in America, you start playing when you're little, and I playing with the kids on the street, tackle football in the street. And, my dad was in professional baseball for 30 years. And so I think probably if my dime store psychology is right, I probably chose football more than anything else because it was kind of my own thing. Every time I did anything in baseball, I was always his son. And when I did something in football, it was kind of my own deal. And, when I was, I don't know, we were somewhere around junior high age. We moved to South Bend, Indiana, which is where the University of Notre Dame is. And we lived so close to the stadium at Notre Dame that you could hear the crowd when Notre Dame would score a touchdown and the band and the whole deal. So as, little street rats, we'd be out in the street and pretending that was us. They were rooting, that they were cheering for. And, just like all little kids do. And I was really fortunate, had great coaches all the way through my playing days. And then my last year, the head coach, Jack Bicknell, who later would go on and be the head coach of the Claymores, called me in and said, "What are you going to do when this is over?" And I was like, "What? Over? What do you mean talking about over?" And he said, "This is it for you." And he said, "I think you ought to go into coaching." And that's really how it happened. I had I didn't go to, coaching school. I didn't go to PE. I didn't major in PE. Those are typically the routes a guy goes to get in it. And just was really fortunate. Got a bunch of really, really great people. Got behind me when I was a young guy getting started and helped guide me and gave me so much wisdom and time and patience. And, because I laugh about it now. I was that kid that just didn't know when to say when. It was like I had to ask a billion questions. And Dick Vermeil, head coach of the Eagles, and then took the Rams to the Super Bowl and later was with the Chiefs, was probably the biggest influence in my life because, he grabbed me when I was a young 20-something-year-old college football assistant and really, really helped guide me. So I have been so fortunate. I'm a lot luckier than I am good. That's what I'll say.
No, I mean, you've certainly, obviously it's well versed how much you've been involved in coaching football. Mm-hmm. I've sort of obviously had a look around, seen, you've seen it all and done it all by the looks of it. That's for sure. So, you started at Western Montana College, is that correct?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, partner, that is the lowest if it's not the lowest level on the football food chain, it's way down there. I mean, and I don't say that in a bad way. I'm saying it was exactly what I needed to do because Jack had said to me, he goes, you can follow me around. He said, but that's not going to really in the end help you. You need to get out. And football is a contact business. It's, it's you learn by meeting people. You develop your own contact base. And so what he said is, I think you need to go and get off on your own. And I remember the day I was sitting in his office and he threw this book across the table at me, and it's called The Blue Book of College Athletics, and it lists every college that plays football. And he said, start writing letters and see if you can get a job as a graduate assistant. And I wrote 75 handwritten letters and got 75 no's, but I got one maybe. And a coach at New Mexico State didn't have anything. He said he wrote a handwritten note in there. He said, Jeff, I don't have anything right now, but one of my assistants just took the job at Western Montana. He may be looking for somebody. And so I tried to get a hold of him. I got a hold of him eventually. We talked. And he said, I'll get back to you. He got back to me about a week later and said, I'm going to give the job to, a quarterback that had recently graduated from the school. He thinks it's a good idea to keep those guys, take care of your own kind of thing, right? So I was like heartbroken. So now I've got 75 no's. And I actually began the process to join the Peace Corps and go to Africa and work in Africa with the Peace Corps. And then about 2 weeks after that, he called me back and he said that guy's wife had gotten pregnant and he didn't think that they could make it on a graduate assistant salary, which was at that time, I think I made $2,500 for the whole year. And so I got my chance. That's how I got my break, and, never looked back.
That's a pretty decent story. I think everyone kind of starts from getting that piece of luck, and then once they get in, it's up to you to make the most of it going forward. And so are you at Hamilton just now? Are you still coaching at Hamilton?
Yeah.
Are they just local to where you stay, or is it?
No, I go back. I've got a really great situation, and it's one of the reasons why I've stayed in the Canadian Football League is that I have so much flexibility in the off season. When you're working the NFL, they don't have any off season. They don't hardly have any time. It's really changed. The calendar for coaches has really changed. I enjoy having an opportunity to live at home in Hawaii for 6 months of the year, to come and do this stuff that I do at Sky, which reconnects me to something that's really, really special to me, and that's the indigenous players in Europe, the kids that don't have all the things that the American kids have, that have to pay to play, that play on fields like with grass that's up to their shins and just all of it, right? And they still love the game so much, and the fans that are so passionate about the games that now they sell out Wembley in 2 hours when the game's announced. I couldn't do that if I was coaching anywhere else, either college football or the NFL. But the CFL gives me that flexibility, and so that's one of the reasons I've stayed in that league for a long time.
I guess we know that feeling, Christy, where we played in a field where you have to have one leg longer than the other. It's on a slope like this, so
you have to be a haggis to play up here.
Yeah.
So from it, you do a lot of, because you were watching some of Jeff's seminars, were you?
I actually watched. I had the privilege of tuning into the Lawrence First and Goal Clinic.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
So I got the chance to tune into you on that one. I must admit, I particularly enjoyed. I'm trying to remember what your phrasing was, but why you practice tackling every day, but why you don't hit each other every day, to do with the fighter planes.
Oh yeah, because it's like a fighter jet pilot. I mean, you're flying a $29 million airplane. You just can't go up and shoot the other guy down just for practice. I mean, you have to learn how to practice, and that's it's funny, Chris. That's one of the hardest things to get a player that comes from college football to the pros to understand about just how, number one, how important repetitions in practice are, and two, how you have to practice well together, because you can't, it's such a fine line, because you got to go right to that moment of truth, and then you got to pull off, just like a fighter pilot does, right? And so, that's one of the things we're constantly trying to get our guys to understand. And when they come as young guys, if you went to any NFL, CFL, pro training camp anywhere, one of the things you're going to hear all the time is the coaches going, stay on your feet, stay up, because they don't want guys on the ground, because that's when you get hurt, right?
Yeah.
So that's all part of the process of teaching guys how to play. And, I really wish, and one of the things that I think we don't do a good job of, really, is teaching young players. Like, for example, if you're a junior player and you aspire to play professional football, well, you need to practice the way a pro does. Because if you wait to get there, a lot of times you can't change your habits fast enough. And the way training camps are today, they're so short. NFL didn't have any training camp games and they only have 3 next year. It's over that fast. And ours is even faster. We only have 2 training camp games. So they come to you and they think they know what practicing like a pro is, but they don't. By the time, they figure it out 2 weeks later, it's over, because in pro football, you better make a good first impression because, there's so many guys standing in line for that job. And I really wish that we could do a better job as coaches teaching young players, the importance of fundamentals, the importance of how to practice, because everything's relative. Like toughness to me, I may think I'm really tough, right? Or I'm doing something hard, tough. And to you, it may be nothing, right? Because your reference point is different. It's the same thing with playing hard. What's playing hard? Well, to a young kid, playing hard is, when I have the ball, I'll play. Or when the ball's right at me on defense, I'll play. But I'm not going to chase all the way across the field for the ball because, you don't know that's what they haven't learned yet.
Yeah.
But then so many times I see them come to pro football, and because their habits aren't pro football habits, they get cut before they ever get a chance to really show what they can do because we just don't have the time. We don't have the there's no patience in the business. Everybody loves football. Football don't love anybody. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think certainly like things like Hard Knocks, for example, is kind of given guys that, guys sitting at home and, even just a tiny look into how ruthless the industry actually is. I mean, you see guys and, you might have rushed for, 2,000 yards the previous season and all of a sudden they're, the sort of rookie in training camp and they're cut before you know where they are. And it is that sort of ruthlessness on it. That's just a bit of a shock to the system, I guess.
Sure is. A really good friend of mine, his name's Jerry Glanville. He was the head coach of the Falcons and the Oilers. And there's a piece, go to YouTube and Google it or whatever you do. I don't know if you can Google on YouTube, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Go there and write Jerry Glanville, Not For Long. And it's a great piece where he's chewing out an official. And he's all over the official about blowing the call. And he goes, you know what the NFL stands for? He goes, NFL, not for long. And you won't be there, and I won't be there very long if you keep making calls like that. But that's really, it's really, I've barred it, and I tell our players that this game is this long, man. And to think that. The average career of an NFL player is about 2.5 years, right? So you better do everything you can and do it the right way and, get some breaks along the way if you're going to play any longer than that.
I've had someone put in a question to you, if that's all right. Steve, just how does the player selection work for special teams in the CFL or pro level?
Okay, in the pro level, it's really pretty simple. You're going to have, we have a 43-day game roster. And so of those, 41 of those players will be non-quarterbacks, all right? The NFL is 53-man, and I think they have 3 quarterbacks, so it's 50-man roster. Well, if you're not a starter, and even if you are a starter, a few of the starters will have to play special teams. So there's some exempt guys, like your star receivers are exempt, your star running backs are exempt, maybe some of your defensive linemen, but all your backup linebackers, all your backup DBs, some of your safeties will do. Like you watch the Kansas City Chiefs and Sorensen plays on 3 special teams and is the starting safety. Now that's unusual, but that's how he came up, and he continues to do it. And that's really what you have to take and create your special teams out of that bunch of guys. And I say this to the other coaches all the time, and sometimes they look at me like they think I'm nuts. But I said, you know what, guys? I've done this for 30 some years, and I have looked at a lot of football cards in my day, right? Because the players all get their football cards about week 3 during the season, right? And they'll give you one, and da. And I said, of all the football cards I've ever looked at, I've never seen one that says wedge breaker on the kickoff team, or R2 or left guard on the punt team, or they always say wide receiver, fullback, whatever, right? So you're asking guys to do something that really they'd rather not do, to be honest with you. And it's physical, dangerous work, because you're talking about collisions that happen after long, 40 yards on a punt, 60 yards on a kickoff. And it's really kind of thankless work. So it takes a special kind of guy to be good at it. If somebody wants to know, the guy who sent that question in should go to my Twitter page, and there's a interview I did with Steve Tasker last night. And Steve is rated the 5th best player ever in the history of the Buffalo Bills. But he's also been nominated to the National Football League Hall of Fame as a special teams player. He will be the first real special teams player to get into the Hall of Fame. And he talks in detail about what it was, what it's like, and, to be a special teams guy. If you're going to be a good special teams coach, you got to be part psychologist, part lion tamer, part therapist, part, con man. You got to wear a lot of hats, because you're asking guys. Think about it this way, fellas. All right. The next time you drive past a park in Scotland, right, you're going to see kids kicking soccer balls around. You're going to see them shooting basketballs, maybe even tossing rugby balls back and forth. But I bet you $1 you ain't going to see anybody line up 40 yards from 3 other guys and run down and practice breaking the wedge. I mean, that's just, you don't see that, right? So you're asking guys to do something that's a little bit crazy. So you got to be a little bit crazy too.
Yeah,
that's definitely fair. Well, as I said, you've obviously done a heck of a lot in coaching. Is there anything that particularly stands out as like a highlight for your coaching career? Like,
Yeah, NFL Europe was really. I've done a lot of. Had the opportunity to do a lot of things. There you go, baby. I like it.
One of my dad's prized possessions, that is.
Yeah. I hope he didn't lift it from our locker room. But I've coached in the Sugar Bowl. I've been on 2 undefeated teams. Been in all that stuff, right? But I'll tell you what, the joy that I got out of working with those kids in NFL Europe was incredible, because it was 2 kinds of players. It was young guys that were trying to finish the job and make it or stick in the NFL, right? Or go polish a skill or whatever. And it was local players, national players, that were trying to prove that they deserve to be professional football players. And so, guys like Tommy Tovo and Robbie Hart and, Scotty McCready, those guys, you loved them because you knew what they came from. You knew how hard it was for them coming up, and to stand there and compete toe-to-toe with a kid that went to Michigan or Florida or was drafted in the 3rd round or whatever, to watch those guys do that was really amazing to me. Like, it was so cool. And then on top of it, the other part was that it was like missionary work to me and to a bunch of us. We were trying to grow something that was really special to us back home, and we were trying to transplant that love of the game into the people here, into the fans that came, the players that played, the young kids that were thinking about, do I want to, toss a rugby ball, or do I want to play, with an American football? And that's why I come to. I'll be honest with you. To this day, that's why I come back to Sky. It's not for the money. It's because I love reconnecting with that bunch of people, and that bunch of people's now another generation on, and watching the younger players now that are so much farther ahead than the kids a generation ago, the fans who know so much more about the game. What you guys do, like for example with this podcast, is absolutely critical for the growth of the game in Scotland, right, and in the UK. And that's why I do these kind of things, because I want to support you guys, because you guys are the difference makers, right? On Sunday at 3:00 in the morning, the NFL is going to be over, right? There's going to be no more NFL for 9 more months, right? Yeah. But you guys are the ones that'll carry it on and keep the fire burning during the off season by things like your podcast.
Yeah, and from we attended NFL Europe for a lot of years. As I said when we were in our chat, is that our dad was involved in the sidelines for the Claymores, and we spent a lot of our time around NFL Europe. And obviously, I've got that Ryan Fire shirt there. I've also got a Scottish Claymores one, and I've got a list from all the teams. I think that my dad wanted to collect them. But one of the things I read about yourself was that at one point when you were coaching Ryan Fire, there was 11 players that had played under you that ended up on NFL rosters.
Yep.
11 players.
11 defensive backs. Yep.
Yeah, and that when you think of how many defensive backs there are in the league, like that's crazy numbers. That's amazing. And we've seen some players that ended up going across to America. Like obviously Kurt Warner's the standout. Kurt Warner's the one that most people talk about. Played in NFL Europe, won a Super Bowl, and now a Hall of Famer. So, but there was plenty of players came across here, played, and then went back to States and were plentiful successful.
Yeah, I mean, like Nick Ferguson, who played for me with the Rhine Fire, was one of our safeties. He played 11 years in the NFL after NFL Europe, and he had been cut 3 times before he made it, right? So he got cut out of college by the Bengals. We got him to the Bears. They allocated him to us. We sent him back. They cut him. Then the Bills kept him. They sent him to us. We sent him back to them. They cut him, but kept him on a practice squad. The Jets picked him up. He played 2 years with the Jets, 8 years with the Broncos, and another year with the Texans. And, I'm still in contact. I talked to him this week, and he knows, had it not been for NFL Europe, he would have never had an NFL career. Anthony Mitchell goes from being a linebacker at Tuskegee in Alabama, a little small school, comes to the Rhine Fire. The Ravens say, hey, see if you can make a safety out of him. He plays safety for us 1 year, goes back and wins a Super Bowl ring with the Ravens. Chris Akins has 2 Super Bowl rings from Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is like a tiny little school. He comes to us with the Rhine Fire, goes back and wins 2 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. And I mean, like I'm sitting in the stadium in Houston and watching the game, and it's the game where the Patriots beat the Carolina Panthers, right, late in the game. And Chris is a backup safety and special team player, and all of a sudden the starter went down, and he had to play the entire second half, and they went after him, right? I mean, like they do. If they see a rookie, if they see a substitute come in, they're going to go after him. So, the Panthers went after him, and I think he picked the ball off in the end zone late in the game to seal the win. And, I was so happy for him and so happy for what that league had done for him. Because, again, here's a kid would have never played in the NFL had it not been for that.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things we were going to ask quickly about NFL Europe here is, do you think it's ever got a chance of coming back? Do you think that kind of setup has ever got a chance of being back in
Well,
Europe?
I tell you what, if you look at it from a cost-effectiveness standpoint, obviously each team paid, I think it was like $1.5 million to help run the league. And then they got some money from the Players Association and some other revenue streams. But the value that they got for their $1.5 million, when you talk about $1.5 million to you and me, that's a lot of money. To an NFL franchise, not so much, right? So not only were all those players developed, and also you save them a lot of money because all of a sudden you got a kid like Achilles Smith, who was a first-round draft choice for the Bengals, and they don't, after 3 years, they still don't know if he can play or not. So they sent him to NFL Europe to find out, and they ended up cutting him because they finally realized he's not good enough. That saved them millions of dollars right there in salary that they didn't have to pay, right? And you mentioned Kurt Warner, and there's a ton of guys like that. Well, the value that you got just in finding out about players, and then figure in this, guys, every official during those years that made the jump from college officiating to pro officiating, NFL officiating, had to go through NFL Europe because the speed is so much different. And it was a perfect way for them to groom officials, right? The same thing with equipment guys, same thing with personnel guys, same thing with film guys. Like, there's tons of those guys still working in the NFL to this day that got their first chance because of NFL Europe. So when you look at the totality of it, saying that it didn't make sense financially, I can't buy it. Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly something like we had a discussion about this earlier. There just seems to be so many benefits to it. And I get there's been things like the XFL and stuff. But then I've always found that, there's already teams in those areas in the NFL. And I think it was quite popular for a while, certainly. I just always thought, when NFL Europe was obviously in existence over here, the sheer amount of fans isn't even close to what it would be today.
I agree with you 100%. And I think they were on to some really good things. You remember the guys used to have the little stickers on the back of their helmet, which is where the team allocated them from. People are so at that time, right? From 95 to 2005, people were just learning about the game and how the process worked and what the combine was and what the draft meant and what, imagine the interest that they would have today if you're a Eagles fan, let's say, and all of a sudden your fourth round draft pick is going to get allocated to play for the Claymores. That'd be a huge. And, think about this. When we beat the Claymores in the 99 World Bowl, I think it was, and it was at the stadium in Frankfurt, and there were 50,000 people in that stadium. You couldn't get another person in that stadium, right? So I just think they were really – it was a bad move. And I think it'll ever come back? I hope so, because I think it's better. The time is actually better for it now than it was in 94 when it started, came back again.
I've got, before we kind of go on to talk about the Super Bowl, I've got a couple of comments that have come up. This is actually from our dad as well.
Mm-hmm. George Cockhill, there's a name. Yep.
And Yo Murphy when with the
Rams.
Rams.
One with Rams. You know what? It's funny about Yo Murphy. I coached Yo Murphy. I was his receiver coach with the BC Lions in 1991. And then he played at Idaho. Somebody cut him. They came to the CFL. Then he got a chance out of the CFL to get allocated by the Rams, and then played in, and then came back and finished his career in the CFL after he's done the NFL. So, and what a great kid, man! What a great kid.
He's a funny guy. We met him a few times.
He is. What an awesome dude. What an awesome dude.
Another one, just as a special teams coach, someone's asked, what do you think about Harry Kane's aspirations to make it in the NFL as a kicker?
I would say keep kicking the ball you're kicking right now until you can't kick it anymore.
Oh, we lost him.
No.
Hopefully getting back here.
Yeah. Oh. Sorry, folks.
Whoever asked that question, I think Harry Kane just needs to stay fit in the sport he's in.
Yeah, it's true. He's got bad ankles as it is.
Yeah.
Don't know if he's loading back.
But one of the things, guys, he told us off, that we'll just speak about while he's away, is he was saying about, so we used to go to Claymores games all the time, and one of the things he was speaking about was when the Rhine Fire came into the Scottish Claymore Stadium, they had a piper stand outside their changing rooms
for 2
playing for
hours.
like 2 hours straight just to scare. And he said some of the young lads in his team had no idea what was going on. They were totally freaked out by this whole thing. And I could well imagine it's like, and I've just been telling him that we pay to have that done at our wedding. You know, that's the kind of stuff we pay for in Scotland, to have folks stand and play the bagpipes. So it's interesting to hear some of his thoughts on NFL Europe. Hopefully we'll get him back here. Is he just loading?
Steve, if you're out there, if you've got any advice, I'd appreciate it right about now. I'll be honest, Callum, I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Were you not after saying Kyler Murray was the next MVP at the start of the season? I think you were. I seen him on your list. Unfortunately, he went off a cliff halfway through the season.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he just seems to be loading, Chris.
Yeah, no, I'm not really seeing much.
We're gonna, when he comes back, if he comes back here, we're gonna talk to him a little bit about Sky Sports, and then on to the Super Bowl stuff at the end. So hopefully we can get him back in here. London needs some better Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi in Aberdeen still works just fine. Way up here. No. I don't really know what else to say at the moment.
I know we can't really go any further at the moment. I do know, like I know what he's saying there about NFL Europe. Like, I mean, he as we said there, he just named numerous players that came from NFL Europe and went to Super Bowls and won Super Bowls and stuff like that. And we've known players in the UK that went to NFL Europe and they've ended up in the NFL, and we've had family friends that are still working over there in the NFL and in the college football league. So it'd be interesting to see over the next few years with the uptake in the sport, and with the London games and the games in Ireland and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see how, like, if the NFL seen it as a viable option again in the future. Obviously, not just now, but in the future, it'd be interesting to see, with the amount of players they received back from NFL Europe that had improved or proved himself in NFL Europe and then went on to have great careers in the NFL. It'd be interesting to see exactly how they would see that in the future, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we spoke about it from, and Jeff kind of touched on it as well, with regards to, it's not just the players, the officials, the equipment managers, the coaches and stuff like that. And actually, that's kind of raised a good point. An equipment manager who's now the head equipment manager at the Seahawks, like it did affect everyone. So, and just while Jeff's not here, someone's actually asked us a question, and I already know the answer I'm going to give him straight away. Would you prefer the reinstatement of NFL Europe or a full NFL franchise? 100% completely NFL Europe.
In agreement.
Don't actually want a franchise over here, because it's a novelty item, I guess, with the games. We've all already got our own teams, and if, for example, we ended up with the London Jaguars, I'm fairly confident that most of us wouldn't switch our allegiances, despite how much the Eagles try and destroy my soul. I don't think I'd be in any position to change my team, and I'm sure a lot of people would be the same. I would take NFL Europe 100 times out of 100, and I genuinely think the following would be humongous this time round. Never know, maybe we'll get lucky. Something like that would be great, and quite frankly, bringing back the Scottish Claymores would be phenomenal.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think most of the NFL Europe pretty much ended up in Germany in the end. So although it's just a German league now, I think a lot of the processes from NFL Europe ended up kind of being followed in Germany, and probably why they've got such a good league. But I think for what it was beforehand, if we could get it again, I think it would be great. I mean, yeah, we've had in the past, so teams from the best team in the UK go and play teams in Finland and Germany and France and all this stuff, and Russia. But it'd be a totally different thing if that was a professional team. If that was a professional UK team going to face a professional team in Germany and a professional team in France and things, I think it would make the spectacle much better than if we have a franchise over here. I mean, for example, it is really expensive to go to Wembley. It's really expensive. We bought a season ticket one year. Actually, we had a few years, but it's not just the game. Getting down there, not so bad if you live in London, but if you live outside of London, getting there is expensive. Staying there is expensive. The food, the merchandise, everything is so expensive that I think it ended up putting you back like £1,000 for the season ticket, which is what most people just can't afford to shell that amount of money out, and that's for 3 games. So imagine if it was a season, you'd be getting at least 8. You know,
plus any potential playoff games as well. And I also think the time difference would be too big of a factor. Yes, I appreciate there's a massive time difference between the West Coast and the East Coast of the United States, but the East Coast to London would be huge. The West Coast to London would be catastrophic. Right now, any team that comes over obviously gets a bye week, but it wouldn't be feasible for potentially 8 games of the year. And that doesn't even account for the London team that would have to go away for 8 games of the year. So I don't think it would be feasible. But I think something like NFL Europe would be so much better. It'd be such a great thing, I think, to have sort of back over here. I was, you're talking about, I was a young child when we went, basically. And even I remember lots about it. So, I would love to see something like that back over here. I mean, I think it gives like that gateway for international players, and obviously the NFL's kind of really try to make that push try to explore where the talent is, because, there is talent outside the United States. And Jeff kind of touched on it earlier. By the looks of it, I'm not sure we're getting him back. It's gone. But
I think it provides more opportunity to European players. Like if you have an NFL franchise here, then they probably have a better infrastructure to help the local community and all this, and build up places in London. But the chances of a UK player getting to play in that franchise is still be slim. Like it is slim just now, but it'd probably be just as slim. However, playing for a UK based team and knowing that it's just Europe, your pool of players that you're going up against are not going to be anywhere near the standard of the NFL to start with. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think we'll ever get to that stage, but there will be the odd player that maybe comes through and is a monster and can go through a new European setup and earn a place in an NFL team. Maybe even, as Jeff said, as a special teamer to start with. So,
and I mean, someone can maybe correct me here. But I believe teams with the international pathway get an extra practice squad slot or an extra roster slot for the player on the international pathway. Or what's to say, examples of like, an extra couple of slots if they're, if they need to be allocated into NFL Europe. There can be things like that to kind of encourage it as well. But as I say, it's not just about the player side of things. Obviously, it's great for the players from smaller schools in the United States that would get a chance to play, lower draft picks that maybe would be struggling to make a practice squad or just make a practice squad getting a chance to play as well. And I genuinely think the people in in Europe would buy into it. I mean, I think, you certainly, I mean, what was it? The World Bowl with the Scottish Claymores, I think, what was it, 35,000 people or something like that?
There's more than that.
It wasn't
50
sold.
50 odd,
It wasn't sold out though.
The World Bowl at
Yeah, it wasn't
Murrayfield.
sold. It wasn't
No,
sold
I don't
out,
think
but
it
it was
was.
busy.
I think they cordoned off bits.
But I genuinely believe that you could probably be talking about that kind of size crowds for every game. It's maybe only going to be sort of a 6 to 8 game season or whatever. I genuinely think there would be enough interest to sort of have the NFL of Europe sort of reboot again. And I think one thing I found anyway, I tried to get into the XFL, and it was good fun, and it was great to watch at times. Although, the sideline interviews were an accident waiting to happen, and didn't take long before a player dropped an F-bomb on a live interview on the sideline right after he'd been flagged. It was good, but I always felt like they kind of there was a few rules changes put in place just for the sake of saying, look, we're different, and I found them a little bit frustrating at times. And as I said, a lot of these areas already had teams in the NFL, and there just wasn't the same draw to it. I think there's quite a lot of passion for it over here in Europe, and I think it's certainly something I really hope that we'd get back to looking into. Given it looks like we truly have lost, Jeff.
Super Bowl chat.
Yeah, let's have a quick chat about the Super Bowl.
That's what we're going to get to.
We're on our own time here. We can kind of chat. I guess best place to start with anything like this is where do we think the game's going to be won and lost? And for me, I know it's cliche and everyone says it, but it's got to be turnovers. Generally the Chiefs can be quite stingy, but Mahomes has been a little bit more partial to a turnover. We've seen in the AFC Championship game they had a fumble on the kickoff, the kick return, and I think what we've been seeing from Brady a fair few times this year is that for a guy that's used to having sort of not a lot of pressure because he gets the ball out of his hands so quickly, playing for a team that generally, unlike sort of teams of past, they do like to take shots downfield. You've seen quite a few times this year anyway that when he's faced with a little bit of pressure and he's got guys in his face, he does have a bit of a tendency to heave it up there, and he's been intercepted quite a few times this year. And let's not forget that, for the how good the win was against the Green Bay Packers, that he threw 3 interceptions in that game, and you can't give the Kansas City offense that many chances.
And you've also to consider that he scored 2 touchdowns from inside their 40 when they got turnovers. The Chiefs aren't going to give you that chance. They are such an efficient offense, and I know everybody says it's Mahomes, but it's not just Mahomes. He is a fantastic player, agreed, but he has by far the best offense in the NFL, and there's no arguing with that. He had the top 2 of the top 3 receivers in the league this year, and one of them was a tight end. That team is built to just score points constantly, so you have to slow them down. Now, I guess if you look at the last game they played, Tyreek Hill had 216 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half against Carlton Davis. Green Bay ripped Carlton Davis to bits, so he would be my biggest concern for Tampa. If he is man on man against Tyreek Hill, they're going to lose. If they roll about in zone or put different men on Tyreek Hill, maybe a little bit different. But then how do you cover Kelsey? Now, again, Devin White might be the answer to that. But then you take him away from pass rush to cover Kelsey, or do the best teams that have had success against the Chiefs this season and last season have neutralized Kelsey on 3rd down and battered him off the line. They have not let him get a free release because, and honestly, if you watch a Chiefs game, every 3rd down, there's Kelsey. Every red zone, there's Kelsey. It's like folk just don't cover him, but the guy gets open. He just does it. So don't let him get that off the line.
Just for anyone out there who's wondering, Jeff did lose connection. He couldn't get back on. He's away on another stream, but he said he'll come back another time to finish off the chat. So I'd certainly like to speak to him a bit more about NFL Europe. I feel like we could have talked to him for hours about it, to be honest. We'll hopefully be able to catch up with Jeff at some other point. Callum's kind of raised the point about the O-line for Kansas City. And again, that's huge because this Tampa Bay defense, certainly the last few games, has been stingy. They have been aggressive. They've got after the quarterback. They've bothered Breeze all night. I appreciate Breeze really struggled to sort of get the ball downfield at all. And, they've really bothered Aaron Rodgers. And we spoke about, not being able to give the Chiefs the kind of extra possessions they gave the Green Bay Packers. But, let's not forget that the Tampa Bay defense turned Green Bay over a few times. Can they get that pressure on Mahomes? Again, we have seen instances. You think back to the Miami Dolphins game earlier on this season, where he was playing up against an aggressive defense. They got in his face quite a bit, and again, he sometimes tried to do a little bit too much. But then, as you spoke about, if they're going to leave Tyreek Hill one-on-one, it's not really going to matter what kind of pressure they get to Patrick Mahomes because Tyreek Hill is going to have Davis on toast. So there's definitely a few things to watch. You spoke about Kelsey and the Tampa defense being really stingy, but they did give up, I think it was 8 catches and 80 yards or something to Kelsey as well the last time round. I think, as you said, we watched when the Raiders beat the Chiefs, and every time Mahomes wanted to go to Kelsey, he was under pressure. He's been hit by, and Kelsey was being hit by somebody immediately, or there was 2 guys around him. The kind of, it comes down to, can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do that while still taking away Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, and you'll know because I sit and talk to you about this all the time. But what I think about Mahomes, yak master, throw the ball as quick as possible in the first 10 yards and let everybody else do the work until you get Tyreek Hill wide open down the field and you throw a massive touchdown. And that's literally what he does. Short pass, hammer you. And that's where I think it's going to be really hard on the Tampa defense. But then again, look at last year, San Francisco's defense were spot on for 3 quarters. And if it wasn't for Jimmy Garoppolo throwing a stupid interception, they beat the Chiefs, And this is where it'll come interesting is, can they stop them moving the ball fast? If they can, then they've got every chance. Now, I know Callum's saying that the O-line's decimated, and it is. And the fact that 2 of their players are on COVID-19 list because they went to get their hair cut by a barber who's now tested positive. So you just can't write that stuff, This is really, do you really need to get that done this week? The Super Bowl's on Sunday. Just stay in your house or stay in the practice facility.
I think they're realistically, everyone's going to talk about Mahomes v Brady, old versus new, and sort of that, greatest of all time against the future, and I understand that, but for me, there's so much more to this game, and quite frankly, from a skills position point of view, what we're being treated to is incredible. Like between having Gronkowski and Evans and Hill and Kelsey and Godwin, and there's so much outside talent on these 2 teams. You can't help but feel this is going to be like a 3-0 game.
I think the two positive players on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that could have an impact are Fournette and Winfield. If he's fit and he's playing, he makes such a difference to that Tampa Bay secondary. On the Chiefs side, I think it's all to do with Hill and Kelsey. If they don't play well, I don't think Mahomes plays well. And I know that a lot of people will disagree with me there, but there are numerous quarterbacks you could put in that Chiefs offense, and they would be in the same position right now. And Mahomes will play well if Kelsey and Hill are playing at a decent level. If they're swamped, if Tyreek Hill's doubled every play and Kelsey's getting battered from the scrimmage line, I don't know if Mahomes is. They've got other options on their team, but they're not the safety nets, and the biggest thing for the Chiefs is third down conversions. They just throw it to Kelsey. He's just always open. It's ridiculous. I think I seen a stat today that I think it's from 2016, but I could be wrong. And it says that Kelsey has 391 third down or first downs conversions, and the next closest is 100 less for the tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking. The thing is, you're talking about a guy like Kelsey who is, he finished. What was it? He was either number one in receiving yards at the end of the season. He was certainly in the top three. He was second, and that's ridiculous for a tight end. Tight end should not be putting up that kind of numbers. It's absolutely obscene. He's probably by a long way really the best tight end in the game. And he's going to have a massive impact on kind of how this game plays out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be for a neutral. It's probably going to be a cracker of a game.
Don't say that. That's why I said 3-0. I'm not jinxing it. I don't want a repeat of the Rams Patriots game. Nobody wants that.
As a Ravens fan, defense doesn't bother me, but I think it's going to be a good game. I know that my partner's a Chiefs fan, so I'm going to be sitting here with Chiefs. So, but I'll be watching it as a neutral, and I think it is. I think that if it comes down to Andy Reid versus Bruce Arians, there's only one winner. I think Brady's offense is more. I think there's more Brady offense in that Tampa team than there is Arians offense in that Tampa team. They went from last year, Winston threw for 5,000 yards. 5,000 yards, Winston. And I know he had 30 interceptions, but he was 5,000 yards and 30 odd touchdowns, and just basically throwing long bombs to Godwin and Evans. This year, and this is why I say is the difference here. This year they took in Gronkowski, they took in they got Scotty Miller fit and ready to go. They got Godwin, Evans, they've got Fournette, Ronald Jones. Like, he has so many weapons on that offense that he's never had that in New England. Never mind anywhere else. That is the best offense that Brady has ever been part of.
And let's not forget that actually picking up Brady allowed them to go and pick up a serious help on that offensive line as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Antonio Brown. The biggest disappointment for me, and you'll probably agree with me here, Chris, is the biggest disappointment for me about this game is that either Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown is going to win a Super Bowl. That is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
as a Ravens fan.
I mean, quite frankly, I think Steeler fans are probably sitting at home crying about the idea of the fact that they're going to have to accept one of those guys is going to win. I think, from my point of view, I would have to pick Bell out of the two of them. I couldn't possibly bank Antonio Brown to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, just from going from Bell going, I want more money, and then taking a tiny bit more money, going to the Jets and suck. He really did suck. And then he gets, well, I'll go to the Chiefs and I'll win a Super Bowl off the back of everybody else playing well and me playing 10 snaps a game. And you're just like, oh.
I mean, let's not forget that, he went to the Chiefs and they kind of tried to force feed him against the Jets. Obviously, a bit of personal beef there, but nobody's talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And, let's not forget that when the season started, he was sort of like that rookie sensation. He absolutely flew out of the traps. So, it's not like they're short on staff in the backfield. The Chiefs team is absolutely loaded from top to bottom. And with the way the defense has been playing, and as I say, with sort of Tom Brady's kind of tendency to throw it up there a bit when he's under pressure. I can't see the Buccaneers winning, but I'm sure I'll be wrong because I normally am.
Well, we'll get to wait and see. Just don't do any stupid tweets that after a quarter or half time, because we know how that ends.
Yeah.
Poor Atlanta fans will never forget that. But yeah, I think really there are numerous different people could have a huge impact on this game. The matchup for me to watch is Carlton Davis versus Tyreek Hill. If they are against each other, then I mean, I don't know how to stop him scoring, to be honest with you. Yeah, right with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was fantastic when LSU's national championship, and then he came in and through the first 5 weeks, honestly, it was hilarious as an LSU fan. Through the first 5 weeks, you had Joe Burrow was the favorite quarterback, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the favorite running back, and Justin Jefferson was the favorite wide receiver, as for rookies, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire obviously got injured and he hasn't played in a while, but he's fit. He's coming back into this game fully fit, and he could. You're right. He could have a massive impact, because he's just so hard to bring down, like a little bowling ball. He really short, stocky guy, and he can catch out the backfield. He can run the ball hard. So he might make a difference, especially if the Chiefs are winning. Coming in at the fourth quarter, we need to churn clock here. We can't let Brady have a chance. Who we're going to give the ball to? Bell? No. It's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Williams, and again, you'll share the same opinion as me, is that the other Williams was definitely the Super Bowl MVP last year. Like, as much as folks say it's Mahomes, it definitely was not. It should have been Williams. So they might rely on those two guys again.
I don't even know what he's speaking about, but I'm really not. I've got to be honest with you, Callum. I'm not even sure I want to know.
I don't even know, and I'm an LSU fan. I'll have to search that now to see what he did.
So it's. I think on paper this is kind of the game everybody wanted. I kind of I want to know what the go to his Wikipedia. I must admit, I went to Jeff's Wikipedia and someone had edited that he was 3'4", and I did point that out to Sean.
No, there's something even better. There's something even better. I noticed it today when I was on it. And it said born 1923, age 19. I can't remember what it said, but it said he was 93, and I was like, "Oh, poor Jeff, he's definitely not that age." But obviously, anyone can edit Twitter, Wikipedia, so you get some funny stuff pops up. But I did look at it and think, wait a minute.
No, and I think I would love to know what the over/under is going to be on Tony Romo saying GOAT and Hall of Fame. You know my personal opinion on him saying that Mahomes could retire tomorrow and be in the Hall of Fame already. Which, to be quite frank, for as good as he's been, is pretty disrespectful to the guys that have put in sort of 15-year careers into the NFL. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think, a game a lot of people will be looking forward to. And yeah, well, we can only hope it's not a repeat of Patriots Rams all over again. But I feel like there's certainly going to be more than one turnover in the game.
Do you think for one team, or do you think each team?
I'm going to say in total, but I feel like one team, and I'm thinking the Buccaneers may have two to themselves, but we'll wait and see.
I mean, you did point out about special teams. The Kansas City Chiefs they obviously had the kickoff with the muff punt last week, or the fumbled punt, and then they had one. Did they have one or two the year before against the Texans? So it's funny that Jeff was on, because obviously he's so involved in special teams. It could end up coming down to special teams, which is why it would have been so great to have conversation with him about this for the Super Bowl at the end. There is that they might make the difference. One guy busting his backside to get down the field and make that tackle might make all the difference in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, and so Dad's obviously asked us here, who will have the more dominant defense on Sunday. Personally, I think the Buccaneers defense is probably better, but I think the Chiefs offense is better equipped. So I think certainly it'll appear like the Chiefs defense is more dominant on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, for the Chiefs, you got their front four didn't really do much last season, and then in the playoffs showed up, and in the Super Bowl showed up. Then Chris Jones basically ended up sealing the deal for them. He is a monster when he wants to play. So their front four is pretty decent. Their rookie corner Snead has been playing outstanding. The Honey Badger is obviously the Honey Badger, and if you give him any chance, he'll take anything away from you. Then there's Sorensen. Probably should have been booted or given some sort of fine against the Cleveland Browns, but he just works extremely hard, and he doesn't get beat easy. So their defense is set up as well, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the biggest thing for them is can they run the ball, because I've heard on numerous occasions this in the postseason in particular that the Chiefs defense ranked like 21st in the league, but it has not allowed much rushing yards in the postseason. And if Tampa can't run the ball, then Brady's going to have to throw. And now, if he has to throw under pressure, we know what happens. He throws up in the air. And you're right. I think Tampa's front seven will be more dominant, and probably look like the more dominant defense on the day. But I think that the Chiefs have a decent chance to pick off Brady a few times.
Yeah, I think you're talking about sort of across the board. Like if you're between the two head coaches, Andy Reid, Bruce Arians, who you taking? I'm taking Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. See, my instinct straight away says Patrick Mahomes. However, in the Super Bowl, Brady is Brady, but I would generally pick Mahomes out of him and Brady. You're talking about the offensive lines. Yeah, okay, I would back the Buccaneers. Running back, it's fairly 50-50. Yeah, tight end, Gronkowski and Kelsey. Maybe in his heyday, I'd pick Gronkowski, but it has to be Kelsey now. Evans or Hill. Again, it's tough to choose between the two of them. Yeah, just across the board, when you look at it, it is quite evenly matched, and we just can only hope that that's kind of what we're going to get in the end. Because and that's why I refuse to acknowledge that it'll be a good competitive game, because that's when it'll all go pear shaped.
One interesting thing that I was arguing with someone on Twitter, standard, and basically someone had posted up saying about Brady. Brady has been, well, he'll now have appeared in 10 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
he's won 6, but in 5 of those 6 Super Bowls, he's had a top 10 defense playing opposite side of him. So, does he have a top 10 defense this year? I'm not sure. I actually don't know if Tampa Bay's defense is a top 10 defense, but that shows you that in the Super Bowl, Brady's played outstanding in some of them. Against the Rams, he was honking. Against the Rams, everybody was honking. It was just a terrible game. Against the Eagles, Brady played outstanding, but the Patriots couldn't defend anything, and that was the one time that I think Brady got outplayed by another quarterback in the Super Bowl. Really,
of all people, it was Nick
yeah.
Foles, and hence his everlasting hatred for the guy and refuses to shake his hand.
Yeah.
Even after Foles somehow managed to lead the Bears over him this year as well.
Yeah.
Callum's come. He's put up a couple of things. We'll kind of run with him.
Yeah, I actually read some in Callum. I read some in this yesterday about Spagnuolo, and just basically saying that Brady's not going to like playing against him.
And one of my favorite kind of stats of the game: Brady has never lost wearing white.
Are they wearing white? Or are they wearing white in the Super Bowl this year?
I'd assume they are because the Chiefs would be the home team, so they will probably
Right.
wear red.
True.
So I would assume that the Patriots are going to wear white. Someone may know the actual answer to that, but I think it would be the case. Yeah. I mean, certainly I think there's so much more. Like, yes, I appreciate that. You're talking about Brady and Mahomes, and that's what everyone wants to talk about. But I think there's so much more to kind of watch for in this game. There's so many more matchups
I
to look forward to.
honestly, because I watched so many different NFL shows online, right? And 9 out of 10 of them I've stopped watching this week because it's just been Mahomes, Brady, and I've just been like, right, I've had enough of this. And if it is a shootout between Mahomes and Brady, then bravo, and it'll be an amazing game. But I really can't see it being between. I can't see it being those two that are the determining factor in this game. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, the winning quarterback's guaranteed to be the Super Bowl MVP, regardless of how absolute garbage they play. If they do, I mean, we were talking about the BBC article, I think it was, that came out after the Bucks win over the Packers, and it was Tom Brady stars and win against Green Bay, and we're all sitting at home going, didn't he throw 3 interceptions that game? Yeah, I thought he did, but apparently, that's stars. Yeah, Callum has kind of said that the Bucks are wearing white, so that's fine. An interesting question come in. Okay, which player is going to score the first touchdown?
Right, so I've just to pick one up straight up, have I? Because I can't pick one for each team.
No, straight up.
I think it's going to be Tyreek Hill. Okay. I think if the Chiefs get the ball first, I can see them just throwing it straight to him. Here you go, second play of the game, 60-yard shot down the field.
I mean, part of me kind of wants to pick one of the defenses just to be a bit different.
Do a Devin Hester and just special team it straight from the opening kickoff?
No, I'm thinking of like a Tom Brady interception return for a touchdown or something. But no, I think if I had to pick somebody, I'd pick Kelsey.
So we've both gone Chiefs.
Yeah.
So and one thing that is interesting about that is that what we said, Brady scored 2 of his touchdowns inside Green Bay's half. They never really managed to sustain long drives except for the first one. So it will be interesting to see. They will need to sustain long drives against Kansas City. I wouldn't think they're going to be handed the ball inside their own half. So that will be interesting in itself. But yeah, that would be my guess. Who would you think? Who do you think is going to win overall? Give us a score you think it might be.
Oh, I mean, I'm terribly afraid I'm going to jinx it here, but I'm going to say that it's going to be 35-17 to the Chiefs.
Well, I actually thought it was, I think 35-24 to the Chiefs. That's what I think.
I did think about giving the Bucks that extra score, but I think I'll stick with it. Although, admittedly, now after picking our first scorers, I'm going to be kicking myself if Brady throws a pick 6 on like the opening drive or something. I'll be fuming about it. But no, I mean, as I say, we're all looking forward to it. Hopefully everybody's got their holidays booked on Monday morning for feeling a little bit weary the next day. But no, we can only hope it's a good game.
And your snack helmet.
The snack
little snack helmet. But one thing
now.
Yeah, well, true. So what colour is the Gatorade, Chris?
Well, given that the Gatorade bath was orange last year when the Chiefs won, I'm going to say orange because I'm assuming the Chiefs are going to win. And if the players liked orange Gatorade last year, I'd be surprised if they've changed it this year, especially because players are really superstitious about that sort of stuff. So I think the Gatorade bath is going to be orange this year.
Yeah, and even if the Patriots see this, honestly, even if the Bucks win, I think it'll be red or orange because I'm pretty sure last time when the Patriots won it, it was red or orange. But
Tom Brady's more of a waterman, isn't he?
oh, is he?
I don't know.
Eating
It
wheat
wouldn't
grass.
surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, and as I say, kind of.
Okay, last one then. Super Bowl MVP.
I mean,
okay, Super Bowl MVP if it's not a QB, because we think if they win, it's likely to be Brady or Mahomes.
I think Super Bowl MVP. I mean, the problem with that is that straight away I want to say obviously like Hill or Kelsey. Probably I would go with Kelsey, but the chances are is that if Kelsey's had a big game, Mahomes still wins it anyway.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like Kelsey could have sort of 15 catches for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then still be. And Mahomes would have sort of 1 touchdown to Tyreek Hill as well, and they'd be like, yeah, but he threw for 5, didn't he? So, yeah, I mean,
it might be another weird game where Sammy Watkins suddenly comes out of the woodwork and just goes for like 160 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, if I had to pick somebody other than a quarterback, again, I would say Kelsey, but I kind of stick by what I said. The problem is no matter how big of a game Kelsey put up, it would also be in the stat column at Mahomes, and Mahomes would win it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go with Kelsey.
Again, I'd say Hill as well. I think you're right. The only thing that Hill might have extra is he runs end arounds. So obviously Mahomes doesn't need. Well, I guess Mahomes will still get the pop-up pass to him, which you've been slagged off for plenty of time in your playing career.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite good.
Nonetheless.
It was quite funny when someone tried to insult me with that after their team lost 61-0, and they decided to use a picture of me just handing the ball off, which makes no sense whatsoever. That was a good one. Shout out to whoever made that one, because that got proper belly laughs for days. That did.
Well, we'll see how things go. I think I think it could be a good game. And who's the halftime show? The Weeknd.
The Weeknd.
The Weeknd's a halftime
whole
show.
weekend in between the two halves.
Yeah, so he's a halftime show. So some of his music's all right. But
yeah, hope for a good show.
Yeah, 25,000 fans. That's how much they're getting. I think 7,500 of them are medical care workers, which is a class move by the NFL. I've seen Roger Goodell had meetings with certain wards and basically had them all in a room and was like, a Zoom room, and was like, "Hi guys, how you doing? You'll be coming to Super Bowl," and they were all like, some of them were like sitting there staring at the screen, some of them were cheering and jumping up and down.
I think generally over the years the NFL does not get much sort of spot on in the forms of the sort of the public eye with these sort of things. So it's nice to see them getting something sort of nail on the head for this one. So
yeah,
as I say, we'll look forward to it, and I'm sure we'll be speaking about it. And although he's not here and he lost signal, massive thanks to Jeff for giving up his time to come and speak to us. And yeah, 100%. I look forward to speaking to him again. I'd love to sit there and have a full conversation just about NFL Europe with him. And maybe we can get that. Maybe we can get Jeff to sort of be the advocate for bringing back NFL Europe in the future. That would be good. But
yeah,
thanks for sticking with us. Even sort of after Jeff dropped out. There's still more going on this week through Gridiron Hub. Make sure you tune in every night to kind of see the shows that are going on. Everything looking forward to this weekend's Super Bowl, and hope everyone has a good Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, Gridiron Hub's covering the Super Bowl journey tomorrow, and then they're covering the Super Bowl itself on Friday. So, plenty of opportunity to talk. We'll by the way, Chris, we'll need to tell everyone we'll put out our predictions, and we'll probably put out some bets we think might be good. So keep an eye out for them.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll catch up with you later.